All right, we're here with Artem Koren. Artem,
Excited
thanks
to
for
be
being
here,
here.
Blake.
Excited about this one. So you've done a handful of cool stuff across product and tech and startups, and we were talking before the recording. You're in Amsterdam now, but you're from New York, and it seems like you worked some cool places. Give us the quick kind of history of how you got in this world in the first place, and what brought you to what you're
Sure.
doing now.
So
Sembly.
my background is in management consulting, IT management, product management. I spent years developing product in fintech, developing product across Fortune 500 companies. A lot of it was to support management of resources at scale, implementations of large projects across these organizations. So ushering hundreds of stakeholders, lots of process impact, lots of organization impact, and lots of technology impact as a result. And in 2019, when I got together with my partner, Gil McLeff, who is a former CEO of UMT Consulting and a former partner and principal of Ernst & Young, we were thinking about what are some of the areas that are still untouched by technology in the world that we come from. And the low-hanging fruit really seemed to be meetings, because as much as technology was trying to support the way we conduct our meetings, so providing a digital and a remote-based approach to meetings, what happens inside of the meeting actually it was completely opaque. So as far as technology was concerned, meeting starts, something happens, meeting ends, and then there's activity following on the meeting, but all of that activity had to be manual. So technology was really unaware of the goings on inside the conversation. And we thought, how valuable would it be if you had an AI participant in the meeting? So thinking a little bit sci-fi, you had an AI sit in, hear what was being said and understand it, and then how that AI would be able to support the team after the meeting. And there was so much, we thought, opportunity for value there. That's where the idea for Sembly AI was born, which is the product that I'm a co-founder of and the chief product officer for.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely a ripe space for some innovation and some exciting developments, because I think we're all, it's like we're all doing these meetings the same way we have for the last 30 years, where it's like, get together, someone's going to take notes. Hey, the amount of times that I've been told that a meeting's being recorded or asked if a meeting's being recorded, and then, the manual way, it's like, who the hell listens to the recording? Like, all these meetings are being recorded. No one's listening to them. So I can definitely understand the space you're working in. It's exciting stuff. I want to get to that a little bit, but maybe before we totally breeze through your background, I want to ask about, you mentioned IT management consulting at Fortune 500 companies. I think a lot of people working in product don't really know that world, like coming in and doing consulting or doing product work inside, some Fortune 500, especially with a consulting view. A lot of people who are like working in product and tech now, or it's just like, I studied TS in college, and I got a job at Uber, and now I'm at Facebook. They haven't worked like in the kind of innards of some like megacorp that might not even be in the tech sector. I'm curious, like what kind of lessons, or like, what is that like? What's that like? What's like a example of like a project you might have worked on?
Sure. So I guess the prequel there is each project is very, very different. And the favorite consulting answer is it depends, and certainly it depends. So I would say there's a lot of difference between how you do product as part of a management consulting engagement. And these engagements can go on for a couple of months, or they can go on for a couple of years, some even longer. So it varies a lot. I can give you an example. So we did a implementation. So first of all, in management consulting, these are called solutions, not just products, because they're very specific to the environment in which they're built. They're not something you can pick up and then drop into another organization. So they're called solutions.
Yeah, it's not going to be like a SKU that you can like ship off to external customers. It's bespoke for the
Exactly,
folks
exactly. It's
inside
a
that
very,
organization.
very custom built product. It's
Yeah.
almost like you can imagine if you have a some kind of a factory and you're looking to automate some part of that process in the factory, like you want to automate the packaging or whatever, the mixing of the sauce, whatever it is that you're trying to automate. It's going to be a very custom built robot
Yeah.
to do that kind of thing, or some sequence of systems. A management consulting engagement to build a solution, uh, it's very similar to that. So you're tying in a lot of the aspects of the organization, and you're mixing together the process, the roles, the technology that's in their space, the existing architectural landscape from an enterprise architecture standpoint, as well as the target enterprise architecture landscape, and you're trying to create a solution that fits in across all of that. So a lot of connecting and syncing with different representatives across the different aspects of the org. So for instance, very typically you would start with the sponsor of the project who has some kind of a business value goal in mind, and you make sure that you're synced up on what those ultimate goals are, what is considered success for the sponsor of the effort. You understand the goals of the management of the sponsor as well, so you understand the strategic. You connect with the technology group to understand what are their kind of mix of technology stack that they prefer and how do they prefer to mix it together, what components they already have that you might want to use, what components are okay to build custom and in a way that they could their technology organization can support it, right? So they could be like a pure Java shop, or they could be a pure Python shop, or something like this. Then, of course, you connect with the architecture side of things. So there's two levels to architecture in large companies. There's the actual solution architecture. So those are the guys who make sure that all of the security aspects, the maintenance support aspects, the scalability aspects are accounted for in your solution, just like you would with any internal technology solution. But then you also connect with the enterprise architects. And these are people who think a lot about a very high-level view of the organization with regards to what types of technologies and systems and applications they're using, where there's inefficiencies in that mix, and what are some of the optimal next generation landing points for that architecture. And you make sure that the solution you build not only can live in the current environment, but satisfies those target landing points. And so a lot of it is understanding the contextual background for the solution, and then you can go forward into actually designing and getting the requirements and then building.
Yeah, and a lot of those for folks who are maybe doing like customer facing B2B SaaS or something as a PM, like a lot of our audiences, a lot of those behaviors are probably things that they're familiar with. It's like you're interviewing stakeholders, you're kind of doing a little bit of like market customer research, you're understanding goals and objectives, you're understanding value props, you're understanding, timelines, budgets, stuff like that. It's just in the context of like, hey, this massive insurance company needs, a solution for some, their customers will never see it, but it'll save the company millions of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. So so I was kind of, as I was telling you, I was thinking back to an example of actually a large national insurer. It's a brand name everyone knows. And they were looking to modernize how they do resource planning and assuring of resources across efforts in a more efficient way and in a more strategic way. And that required tying together pieces of project portfolio planning, pieces of understanding their current resource mix across their organization, and then how do you queue up resources for projects based on skill sets that they have, And how do you minimize the wait time between when a resource frees up for an assignment versus when they can kick off the next assignment? So a lot of considerations were in play, and a lot of existing enterprise systems were in play that already contain some of this data. And then we built a solution that kind of go around these systems, put the data all in the required views and dashboards, and allow the different groups that were charged with different steps in the process to make good decisions.
So cool. Okay, last question on this on this whole topic. We
can do a second. We could do a second one.
So a little bit. We can do a whole, we can do a whole like what goes on in this world episode. Yeah. Since then, and sort of accelerating around 10 years ago, and certainly in the last decade, there's been this like massive explosion of just like off the shelf SaaS vendors for like every problem, every point solution you can imagine, right? Like there's this like Cambrian explosion of like SaaS products and software vendors and B2B companies that can do a little bit of everything. Like, are these big like Fortune 500 companies like implementing more and more of that? Are they still building like the large share of their, technology solutions like bespoke in-house stuff? For like where's the kind of dividing line there that you would think,
that's an interesting question. I think some of it is a bit cultural. It's the company's approach to technology. Some companies are very organically minded and they like to build from within. And so they use either pointed solutions or very like best in class solutions for that particular task. And they like to find the best solution for the specific problem they're trying to solve, because they're very confident about their ability to architect across the board and integrate all these things together and keep them going. So that's one approach. Other companies, they will just land on a massive provider, let's say Microsoft, and they will standardize across with Microsoft everything. And then they just, that's just their approach. Sure. They kind of, in that sense, they offload the technological thinking to Microsoft experts and Microsoft expertise, and then they focus on core business. So they don't try to be front runners in a technological sense. They try to make the best ice cream. So I think it's very culturally dependent. So that's one kind of way of looking at this world. Another way of looking at the world is, even though there is a Cambrian explosion of SaaS services and products today, that's very true. There's massive consideration around security, privacy, reliability, trust, scale, and so on. And although it's easy to stand up a SaaS solution, it's difficult to earn the trust in those ways with large companies and to certify yourself. Because if you're looking for a SOC 2 certification or ISO 27001, or maybe you need HIPAA in certain environments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just getting certified in that way is not an easy process. And then to maintain and support that certification is also a tall order. So it's one thing to be able to offer a SaaS service. It's another thing to offer it with all the accreditations, let's say, that large companies need in order to truly be able to use.
Yeah. If I'm a product manager or even a founder at a startup, and I'm really hoping to sell into the Fortune 500, what might your quick advice be, or what are most people doing wrong who are in that situation?
So my first piece of advice would be, make sure you have a really good answer for why Fortune 500 and not a Fortune 500. And that answer should be something better than, well, those guys are bigger and therefore they have bigger budgets. If that's the only reason you're going, because they have a bigger budget, you're probably not considering all of the complexity.
big, just big logos.
right?
People
So I
go,
think
yeah,
that's the
cool.
first, because it's such a like
Right.
it seems like such a like, well, okay, we want to sell. Who do we want to sell to? The people with the most money. Okay, here we go. Like JP Morgan, like buy me. So
Right.
that would
Right. Right.
be my first thing.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
for some reason, let's say your solution is such that it makes most sense for the big companies, maybe it's something that's truly enterprise oriented, or it's just a very expensive solution on its own, but it provides a lot of business value. You have to have all your quote unquote papers in order. I'd say it's not even worth wasting your
Mm,
time talking to a Fortune X 100 without having SOC 2 or ISO 27701, depending on your geography. And that, you have to start getting into those kinds of things.
mm,
Which geographies and which verticals prefer which certifications. Getting that done, it's usually months of work
mm.
and lots of investment, both in your resource and in the audit. Usually with some supporting systems that you need
Yeah.
to implement to allow you to get certified and all sorts of things. And then get your paperwork together before you would even approach a Fortune 500. And then the third bit of advice I would give is that if your solution involves storing sensitive information in your environment versus the enterprise's environment, it's going to be a real uphill battle. So think about, can you create a solution that it can be fully encapsulated in that environment's private cloud, and be ready for like, we have a lab cloud and it's going to take you 2 months to deploy a pilot into this lab cloud. And then it's going to take us, another 3 months to test it in the lab cloud. And then we're going to have feedback items for you. It's a long road when you're working with enterprise. So just be kind of prepared for that duration aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And a lot of, I think a lot of people don't realize like this is for like the massive software vendors out there. This sort of whole like cloud security things is like one of the biggest challenges that they have, and like one of the biggest sort of strategic, hills that they have to climb right now. Like talking like billion, multi-billion dollar companies with all the resources and, manpower that is involved there. So yeah, if you're a startup, like it's definitely an uphill battle. Okay, I spent enough time on that. Appreciate you humoring me. I want to talk more about Sembly AI. You touched on it a little bit at the beginning. You guys are in the team meeting space. Tell me kind of more about how you came into this. I'll switch from talking about solutions to products now. How you came into this product. What did kind of like product discovery and everything around that
Yeah.
look like?
So when we started and we were building our first prototype, it was a very, very young industry and market. There were a couple of players in the market, but most of the but there weren't many, and the few that were there were very, very immature. And so there's an interesting factor in building new product and understanding market in a place where the market doesn't yet exist truly. So think about it as, let's say you wanted to build an iPhone before there were like app like iPhones and
Sure.
Androids in the
Yeah.
wild. People just use normal phones, and
Right. The category doesn't really exist yet, so people
right,
don't know what they
exactly.
don't
And
know.
if you were to interview someone in 2000, I don't know, 5, and you were like, well, like what would you do with a touch phone? No one would say I would spend most of my day on something like a TikTok or Instagram. Like that's going to be
Yeah,
my day from now on.
100%.
Like that's what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. And I always love that example, especially with touchscreens, where it's like people forget how long touchscreens were around and largely how terrible they were. Like in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff, like there were these clunky things that would be on like an ATM machine somewhere, and you try to push the button and you'd have to push it twice, and your finger would like miss the thing, and like you'd fat finger the wrong number. Like I remember when like smartphones came out and a bunch of people were like, touchscreens, those things, there's no way. And it's just like one of those technologies that's like, and a lot of them are like this. It was like, yes, it sucked until it didn't. And then it didn't, like a lot of tech has that, especially hard tech has that trajectory. It's like, it's around, the sucky version is around for a while. There's some hype, people kind of forget about it. Then it gets good enough to like hit
Yeah,
critical
exactly,
mass.
exactly. And in the case of iPhone, a few things had to come together, and I think we're in a very similar place with AI assistants. Um, and it's still a developing category, but it's certainly a category now that's much better understood and also has some awareness in the market. Very, very early stage, but at least so. But when we started out, it was very little, and so a lot of what we were doing was first a little bit of education, trying to explain to people what this thing was and what it can do for the user. Then trying to work through some of the apprehension of having something listening in to your intercompany meetings, and where's this information going and how is it being used. And then, of course, we were challenged with the state of the art in speech recognition at the time, which was very good compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, but it still wasn't, it was very, very close, but wasn't exactly at the level where somebody could look at it and say, okay, like this is usable, like no question. So it took a little while for all the pieces to come together. So both actually, the COVID pandemic accelerated this market in a big way because it pushed many people towards remote work, and suddenly Zoom meetings were very, very normal, whereas before they were kind of fractional. The next thing that happened was that speech recognition started to be consistently human quality, and we invested a lot in that part of it. So we have our own proprietary engine that does a really good job in the domain of speech that we support, which is professional team meetings. And also the state of machine learning and AI was advancing rapidly during this time. And so as these things coalesced, you started to have a solution where an actual AI meeting participant became a reality. I'm not even mentioning some of the technical aspects, which is conference platforms were very limited as to how you could attend their calls. Some were better than others. Some didn't even have an API. Some still don't. But very exemplary Microsoft Teams over the past few years have progressed by leaps and bounds. If you look at MS Teams like 5 years back, it's a completely different world than what you have today. And so that even the technological basis for our kind of product was evolving at the time. So it was a lot of build and fit. It was a lot of fitting to the market, seeing what we get back from our users, adjusting, pivoting, looking also at our competitors. We were looking at who were also at the same time trying to figure out the market as we were. And so we were looking at them to see what was working for them, what wasn't, and sort of using that as inspiration for some of the things that, we were to do in our own product.
Yeah, I'm curious about the kind of cold start moment for, finding customers and, users of a product like this. And, we touched on with, the big company environment stuff around privacy and security and concerns around sort of like data prominence and all that. Like, how did you approach sort of coming into customers, finding early users in the sense of like, hey, like you're going to attach a thing, like you said, you're going to attach a thing to my meetings that's ingesting the entire recording of all my meetings. Like talk about like, potential security vulnerabilities and questions around what happens if there's an issue, or who are you guys? Like, how can we trust blah, 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 blah. Like, how did you kind of approach the kind of like cold start of early customers for a product where like there is a good sort of like ask there?
So there, in the early days, what we had to do was find customers who have what I'll call an extra need, meaning that it's not only our general value proposition that they would benefit from, but they have like an extra bonus benefit that the product provides to them just by the nature of who they are and what they do. So an example could be like a consulting company or a management consulting company that is trying to differentiate itself. And so if it comes to a customer and says, okay, you know, one of the ways we manage our projects is using this AI solution. And through this solution, you also get the benefit of a lot of transparency, a lot of tracking, a lot of automation. And you get to kind of follow everything our consultants do in your engagement. To a consulting company that's looking for that edge, that's a really interesting proposition, because suddenly, you know, it's not just that you have to go out there and claim and show that you have the best consultants and the best methodologies, but you also have a technical, very objective advantage, very substantial advantage. And so that was one of the things that helped us move along early. There were some users who were just very technology forward and very curious and just wanted to plug in and use the platform. And we also found, so this is also in that line of kind of a bonus advantage, which is, I guess, an interesting idea for a cold start. I never really thought about it that way, but I think this is part of the way that it can work. So for example, a few years ago, we partnered with Philips, the speech division of Philips, who produce all of the microphone devices for Philips. And they're, you know, they have a wonderful set of products, a lot of amazing product lines. They're, you know, they're an amazing team. They're really like, you know, technology forward and very, you know, very thoughtful about their product set. But it's hard to differentiate a conference room device, because, okay, it's a Philips conference device, but you have other brands that have conference room devices. And how do you make sure that it's really, you know, how do you capture the imagination of your customer? So by partnering with Sembly, Philips was able to offer a lot more in the value prop of their technology than just a microphone device alone, because suddenly that device inherited all the capability of our AI-enabled platform. And through some customization, some, you know, close work together across our teams, we were able to present a solution that was very innovative for the space that, you know, others would have a hard time claiming. So that was a nice fit as well. And also, I think, goes towards that theme of there's like this bonus benefit. It's something that's additionally differentiating in addition to being valuable in and of itself.
Yeah, that's a great approach, just to sort of seeing value for the customer. And I love that around finding someone who's looking for an edge. So often I think folks get kind of hung up around internal metrics, or it's just like, you know, is this going to save them money, or how many hours on their team can this save, or something like that. But it's like, no, if you have someone in their competitive environment, they will invest in something that, you know, that gives them a leg up over their competition, or can help them sort of differentiate and kind of stand out from the pack. So that's a really cool way of thinking about that I don't think gets referenced enough. So I'm really glad you brought that up. I want to talk about maybe the AI side of this a little bit too. It's obviously a super, super exciting time with everything that's going on with AI right now. Also at the same, and this is, you know, candidly something at Launch Notes we're trying to kind of thread the needle with as we, you know, implement more kind of AI powered functionality into our app here too. There's a lot of exciting stuff. There's also a lot of noise, and like, how do you sort of balance like putting the AI value prop, you know, out there with customers and explaining it without, I think a lot of people are just saying like, hey, it's got AI. But it's, you know, that's kind of like the start and finish of their pitch. So how do you kind of like, how have you thought about, or what have you seen works in terms of like talking about AI with customers and what it can do for them?
I think AI today is very similar to .com of the mid 90s. So there,
Right.
when you,
Yeah. You could have anything.com,
and
and
if
there's
you
like,
didn't
that
have
was
a
novel
.com,
enough.
you were worthless at it. Like you were a t-shirts company, you were super prosperous, but for some reason, the 1990, whatever,
Yeah.
5, 6 comes around. And if you're in t-shirts.com, you
Yeah.
were worth like 1/10 of what the t-shirts.com would be worth. So I think, yeah,
I remember my college newspaper, someone got the bright idea of, on the print paper, instead of just Western Herald, they put westernherald.com as the masthead of the paper. I was like, well, that'll do it.
done.
But it was like, that was the environment. It was just like, yes, slap a .com. It's like, you're innovative. Why? It's like, I don't know. We have a .com. So yeah, great
It's
tie-in.
very,
AI is
very
kind of doing that
similar.
right now,
I
right?
think maybe even more accelerated than it was in the 90s. It's moving along even faster, if that's possible, and it seems to be possible. This pace of development in the industry and transformation I've never seen, and I've seen things. I've seen some things. But
Yeah.
this pace, I mean, this is where the pace where, you know, our leads are saying, like, give us a couple of weeks to, you know, to land in the original before we can take advantage of the thing that already came out. Um, so
Right.
yeah, so the AI. So first of all, yeah, there you can tag on AI now and claim, you know, this is an AI solution. But in some sense, that's okay. It's true, because I look at AI. I think people used to look at AI, or generally AI used to be looked at as a kind of a tool unto itself. Like, you know, you had your knife, your fork, and your AI. And I actually think that's a wrong way of looking at it. Just like it's wrong to look at the web as a tool. I look at AI as a material. It's like a building material. You know, it's like a Play-Doh of sorts. And I liken it to, you know, let's say, you know, if you used to build airplanes with aluminum and like wood or plastic, I don't know, whatever you used to build airplanes with, but then you had carbon fiber,
Yeah.
right? And so AI is this new material. It's a really powerful material. It's a material with these properties that other things have never been able to claim. And of course, now that you have this new material, you can build some stuff. You can build some really interesting stuff. But if, you know, I have ice cream on my mind. I don't know why, but if we go back to the ice cream example, like maybe you don't need AI, like for ice, like you could, like you can say, oh, AI, like come up with some
Right.
flavors. You could,
Yeah.
but do you need it to have a really delicious ice cream stick? Probably not.
Yeah, absolutely. But if behind the scenes there's some way of, you know, using it for that company to make ice cream faster or more efficiently or do better quality control or whatever, it's like all the things that they're looking for anyway. It's like, how can this kind of augment and improve that, rather than just being like, hey, the ice cream's got AI now, right? And it's like, yeah, that trajectory from, this is a novel thing that you can just slap on your company and get some attention around, to that's totally played out. Like, it feels like that happened in a matter of weeks. And now people are quickly going to be onto like, okay, what is this actually improving? Like, it's not that it's just there, like, but what is it actually?
Right, exactly. It has to be pointed value. So of course, if there's a large company behind the ice cream, of course, there's all kinds of points and places that company will be able to benefit from AI, of course,
Right.
of course. But, you know, if I'm by myself at home and I'm trying to make some ice cream, like I don't need AI for that. But
Yeah.
as it is a material, it's going to get mixed into most, if not all, business processes, business technologies. It's going to make its way almost to everything. In that sense, it's a little bit like beach sand. You know, it gets everywhere, and so does AI. And because of the different ways that AI can be applied, and there's different types of AI, from kind of like, you know, we have like our classical, what I call the classical machine learning, to now we have generative AI, and there's things and bits and pieces in between. You can sprinkle AI, you can kind of, you know, spread AI across your, you know, your business sandwich. There's all sorts of ways of
Yeah.
applying AI, but I think as we move forward, you'll be hard pressed to find a business that doesn't have an element of AI in it in some way, just like you'll be hard pressed to find a business that doesn't use the web in some way.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I've come to really see these like a lot of this AI functionality through a sort of like input output lens lately, and a lot of it's just like the kind of old adage like garbage in, garbage out, and the strongest demos and value props of the AI, which is why I think what you guys are doing with meetings is so exciting. Is like when you take some you take some chunk of data or material for the AI to analyze, slice and dice, summarize, do something upon, and then it's going to spit out some output rather than just like, I think people think like AI is like magic robots, like go get me more customers or something. It's not that, right? But when you have some like chunk of data that you can feed it, which is why I think like meetings is such a great, because you've got this really rich kind of complex piece of data that comes out in the form of a meeting recording. Like transcribe that, summarize that, find takeaways, action items. I'm sure you guys are thinking of all this stuff, but really cool, like rich piece of input to feed into this
Exactly. It
technology.
comes to the fact that now AI, especially with the large language models that exist, have gotten really good at understanding natural language and understanding what you mean when you say certain things, why you're saying it, and consolidating and cohering information. And so if, for example, Assembly users have an AI participant in their meeting, so Assembly attends their meeting. When Assembly comes out of that meeting, there's a whole broad range of value that you can give to the team, like just for instance, automatic meeting notes, right? Boom, it's generated for you. It's easy. The meeting in different languages, so you have the transcript, but you can have it in any language you want. You can even, if there was a mix of languages used during the meeting, that's fine too. That will all be understood. Think about the fact that the AI participant goes to the meeting. You don't have to. If you have a conflict, if you couldn't make the meeting, you send the AI participant instead of you. The AI comes back with the summary, the key items from the meeting, the actions, issues, etc. And you, in a matter of under a minute, you're up to speed on everything that was discussed. So those are some of the kind of real quick gains, just like very, very basic gains from having an AI in there. But then there's a lot more cool things. Like we have a feature called My Commitments, which is basically the AI participant listens for to-dos during the meeting. Like it listens for things that you said you were going to get done. And then it just figures out what's your to-do, and then it adds it to your list. In fact, it can automatically drop it into your to-do app that you use. You use like Microsoft To-Do or something like this. It will put it in your Microsoft To-Do list. And so you come back to work on Monday and you're like, okay, I had like 200 meetings last week. Like what is all the things I'm supposed to do? By when am I supposed to? This Assembly just built your to-do list. And I like to joke because that feature is very, very close to an AI telling us what to do. So we're starting to scratch on that very kind of scary border, but it's real and it's here, and it's very useful. This is like one of my favorite features in the product that I use all the time.
That's amazing. Yeah, you guys have certainly honed in on one of the most frustrating parts of work, which can be meetings. And managers, I have tough news for you. No one's listening to your meeting recordings. no one's queuing up. As much as people don't like to go to meetings, they don't like to sit quietly and listen to a recording of a meeting for 30 or 60 minutes. So if you all are able to summarize them and create action items, takeaways, all this other cool stuff, certainly super fascinating and valuable. And I'm excited to see what you guys keep doing there. It'll be fun to watch along. Artem, this has been super fun. I think we could probably do 3 more hours on like any of the topics we touched on here, but maybe we'll save that for another time. If folks want to check out Sembly AI, connect with you, say
Sure.
hi.
So
Where can we send them?
www.sembly.ai. That's SEMBLY.ai. And you can register for a free trial there and check out the product, have a good time with it. Ask it to interpret the meeting as an epic poem. I will do that for you. And if you want to find me, it's Artem Koren, ARTEM KOREN on LinkedIn. That's the best way to connect with me.
Awesome. Thanks so much,
Thank you
Artem.
so
This
much.
has been super fun. Appreciate your time.